Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's start on the second section on page Kuf Lamed. Fourth line from the top. We said that Atzmus, it's shortchanging if we call it Ein Seif. More appropriately, it should be referred to as Ein Tchila. There is no beginning to it. There's no starting point. Let's understand the principle of starting point. A starting point means something must have triggered it to come into being. There is no trigger for Atzmus. There is not a definition of what Atzmus is, so therefore it cannot be a trigger for bringing it forth. Along with that comes the counterpart. It has no trigger to begin, and it has no tachlis in terms of defining what it is seeking to accomplish. So I'm going to start at the end of the fourth line. We're going to be introduced to terms which are extremely meaningful but completely elusive. We have no means to grasp it and to understand it. This is an imperative aspect in trying to understand, so to speak, the pure truth, that you'll have to use descriptions and terminology that are self-contradictory. Such as, in very simple terms, he is there, but no, there's nothing there. This is a contradiction on the same pivot, on the same point. And yet, that is the only way to refer to it. Okay, I said let's see on the end of the fourth line. The line begins with the word Zamayla Yiseiru Al-Insov. Ve'atzmusa Yizborech, at the end of that line, Ve'atzmusa Yizborech. Atzmus of Hashem, Yizborech. This is a halacha that when you mention Hashem, you have to mention a praise word. It's a privilege to mention Hashem, and therefore he has to bring out a praise word. Why you mention it? You want to mention the praise. Otherwise, where do you get the audacity to mention him? Atzmusa Yizborech, shemetzius me'atzmusoi, whose mitzius, presence. Mitzius means presence. me'atzmusoi is from it himself. There is no prior trigger for his coming to being. There's no such thing as his coming into being altogether. And therefore there is no trigger for his me'atzmusoi. From his etzem is mitzius.
We're inside which line?
Right now we're on the 5th line from the top.
Thank you.
We start at the end of the 4th line from the top.
Okay.
This term, mitzius me'atzmusoi, is extremely challenging, and yet it really allows us to dig into a depth of thought. Let me discuss this a little bit. We're all intelligent people. I once explained in very simple terms. 1 and 1, we say 1 and 1 make 2. It's 2. So my question is, why do we say 1 and 1 is 2? Maybe 1 and 1 is 1 and 1. What is the difference between saying 1 and 1 is and 1 and 1 and saying 2? The answer is that 2 is our perception. This is called intelligence. From the perspective of its presence and existence, it's 1 and 1. And it doesn't change into anything. 1 and 1 is 1 and 1. But we have an intelligent overview on things. And we say 1 and 1 is 2. What's the intelligence behind 2? Okay, I hope you'll find this. And if you miss it, please stop me. When you have 1, this 1 justifies its existence because it occupies this particular spot that this 1 occupies. How it got this spot, somehow it got, but it's there. And therefore it is there because there's room for this 1. In order that this 1 should become 2, you have to expand it to a completely different realm. This 1
call, press 1. Returning to the conference room.
This 1 does not in itself trigger, does not in itself compel that there should be room for the second 1. This 1 only justifies its own existence. So when we say, wait a second, 1 and 1 is 2, that means that we have a different kind of perception of the 1. Yes, 1 is 1. But this 1 is not 1 because of its own reality, but because it is a broader reality that allows this 1 to be in the first place. And this broader reality already allows for 2. It's a bigger reality. It's not a reality that is completely captured by the 1. This reality is of such profound truth that if there is 1, it's imperative there will be 2. Nothing is going to stop that it should become 2, because it has no limit as to its capacity. So when we say this is something which we take into account, 1 and 1 is 2. We have no problem with it at all. In other words, this is primary reality. 1 and 1 will allow for a second, and the second will allow for a third. Now we have to dig into it. What in fact is a compelling element behind saying that 1 and 1 is 2? Who created this broader who allowed for this broader presence That it's not just this one that I'm touching, I'm holding in my hand, but yes, this one tells me that there is room for a second one, and room for a third one, and for a fourth one. Where does this come from? It's a primary, so to speak, it's a simple view. It's no questions asked. This is obvious, but this obvious reality what brings this reality into being?
Seemingly the same as brought the one into being, and the one is
But one?
seemingly the same origin as the one itself, and one by itself is also pretty wondrous. I don't feel how two is more wondrous than one.
Whether two is more wondrous than one is a question. But the fact that you say one and one make two, it seems that the one is a compelling element. But it's more wondrous. Okay, you can conclude any which way you want. But what makes you so sure that one and one is two? Is it self-creating? Is it so real that whatever you put it, it will expand on its own? This is the concept of kamitrusi me'atzmusi. Something that is of primary reality is this atzmus atzmitrusi me'atzmusi. This mitzius is not something that needs to be justified, does not have justification, does not have a trigger. It is self-identifying reality. That's why I brought out this one-on-one. One-on-one is such a simple, obvious reality. We don't question it. And yet, if you think into it, there's an obvious question. What's so imperative about that? The real reason why it is true, because we know that there is a bigger world than just one. And this bigger world, we always question, where does it come from? What brought it into being? For this, the Torah says, Bereshit bara Elokim. It's a godly presence. It's a godly miracle, in fact.
I'm afraid to ask this question.
What?
I'm afraid to ask this question.
Don't.
I won't.
So,
You know my question.
no, I don't know your question. You always come from left field. So, I can wait.
Fine.
You refuse to see the world from the Torah perspective. Your world is a false world.
How do you know?
I know.
How do you
Because I spoke to you plenty of times, I know where you're coming from. I know where you're coming from.
You
I
know
know
where I'm
you're...
coming from, but how do you know that my reality is...
Because I know I've heard you many, many times.
Were you unable to verify my reality?
I don't need to verify it. It's false to start with. It's a false premise. The world is a creation, not self-made. So if you're going to justify something, it is self-justifying, it's a false reality. Period.
What did you just say?
That's it.
If it's self-justifying, it's a false reality?
Yes.
What? If it's
In the
you
world...
just said that God is a self-justifying reality.
What?
You just said that God
is not world.
self-justifying.
God is not world.
Is what?
He's not world. He's not worldly at all. It's a different reality.
Well, he's got to be in the world.
No, he's not in the world.
Well, we're here in the world.
We are here in the world.
Okay.
You're taking me where I don't want to go. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I told you this is a false perception. I don't want to waste everyone's time here.
All right.
You want to see the godness from a worldly perspective. It's a false view. Doesn't exist. I heard you say yesterday in shul, "Oh, you all guys are just fictitious thinking. I have a real knowledge. You have no beginning. You have no."
I never said that.
You said that in shul publicly yesterday.
I said that. No, I didn't say that. I
Probably
didn't.
It's likely. I didn't hear it.
I
It's
didn't-
likely.
I heard it. I heard it from your mouth. You said it publicly. All right, let's just go on.
Well, that's what you
All right,
said.
Shmuel,
You
please,
say the same thing.
Shmuel, I told you, I don't give you right to speak. This is my baby right now. When you give a class, you'll talk. This is the Rebbe's turf over here. Rebbe's turf, we see things only from the Rebbe's perspective, from the way the Rebbe presents it. Atzmus only is mitziusim atzmus. Atzmus is an undefinable reality. Mitziusim atzmus means it pre-exists its existence. Its existence is not defined by the fact that it exists. And what is it? True, it completely baffles us. We have no means of defining what it is. It's so zero. There is not in the world a means by which we can identify what kind of mitzvah is this atzmus. The Pasuk says, "Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz." In the beginning, God created Shemayim v'ha'aretz. Everyone knows the story of the Shivim Zkenim, that the king, the Rebbe set up that they should translate the Torah. I don't remember who it was again at the moment. He wanted to see, the Greek king wanted to see, is it a true presentation? So he set up 70 scholars in 70 different cubicles, and he said to them, translate the Torah. And they all sat there and translated the Torah. And in several places, they altered somewhat the translation from the way it is written. And it happens that they all focused and identified the same place where that should be altered. And one of the examples is, instead of translating in the beginning, God created Shemayim v'ha'aretz, they started saying, God created Shemayim v'ha'aretz. Not Bereshis. In other words, it should not be misconstrued. That Bereshis created Elokim. Bereshis bara Elokim. That Bereshis created Elokim. No. Elokim bara Bereshis. This is how they put it. Elokim bara Bereshis. Elokim, he is the one who initiated the whole Bereshis. There's no Bereshis prior to Elokim. This is our Torah. So the guy could have been misled by Elokim, and that's what they needed to change. For it, there's no problem. In the beginning, God created. There's not a thought that Bereshis created Elokim. Because Elokim Bayas is not in the beginning of anything. Elokim is a reality beyond being. Mitziusim atzmusay. It is not a being that comes into being. There is no way that in the world you can explain this kind of concept. In Torah there is this. In the Jewish Neshama there is. Because this is a godly spirit, a godly spark. Godliness precedes, that precedes. Does not have a beginning, does not have a beginning. Because Mitziusa Me'atzmusa. Go translate these words, Mitziusa Me'atzmusa. There is no way. Because in translator you have to use worldly terms, and they don't fit. Okay, so let's start again in the line. Shemitziusa Me'atzmusa. Atzmusa is Borich. Which is Mitziusa is Me'atzmusa. Now when you say Mitziusa Me'atzmusa, it sounds like you would say, first there would be Mitziusa, and then he creates Mitziusa. It doesn't make any sense. Mitziusa Me'atzmusa is that the Atzmus and the Mitzius is the same thing. Because his etzem is of such a category, if you can call it a category, is the primary truth that it does not beg for a question where does it come from. There is no. The question doesn't even come up. It's not a valid question. Therefore, Harei ein l'tchila. Thus, it follows that it does not have a beginning. Since Atzmusoi defines and identifies and brings forth Mitziusoi, therefore there is no beginning. He is his own beginning.
If we're focused on the Atzmi element here, what is Mitziut, the category or the meaning of the word Mitziut doing here?
Aha. The category of Mitziut is when we are attempting to give us a perspective of Atzmus in a worldly context. In world,
okay.
Why? What for? What for? In order to bring it closer to our seichel.
Okay.
And what for is that? When bringing it closer to our seichel then, and be not fools, our seichel then illuminates our whole being and brings life, seichel life to our midas. And we start really living in the godly reality rather than the worldly reality.
So it's this, it's a degree of megashim in a way. It's like to allow us to, like you said, relate.
Okay, Chas v'sholom to be megashim. It's a degree of looking at it from our perspective.
Which allows us to sort of integrate it, like you said.
No, it cannot be integrated because
or illuminate us.
Wait a second. The only way to present it is a self-contradictory terms.
Okay, good.
Atzmusa is a self-contradictory term.
Yeah, plain reading does seem to be like some kind of Mitzius is being presented.
But then, Atzmusa.
It originates in his essence.
So what is Atzmus that is originated in Mitzius? What kind of Mitzius is it that originates his Mitzius?
Well, that's the wonder of creation in general. Why is there any specific creations? They come out of his.
No, you can't. You're self-contradicting. Mitzius and Atzmus is a self-contradicting term.
Yeah, but it's right. It's not just wondrous here. It's wondrous in general that you have any definition, because all definition arose out of his essence, arose out of the AYIN. It's a yesh mi AYIN.
Wait a second. What's the point?
What's the point? That it doesn't seem so. If it's contradictory, it's.
No, 1 second. Okay, that's what I'm trying to think. What's the value of saying Mitzius and Atzmus?
And what is it? Yeah. Why is it contradictory? It seems to be...
No, it's contradictory completely.
Fine, but it's widespread across all of creation, that you have a yesh mi ayin, you have
Wait a
some...
second, you're bringing in terms that we haven't yet touched. Mitziusim atzmus.
Fine, you have a metzius that came from Etzem.
From itself.
Yeah.
So what was there prior to Mitziusim?
Just Etzem.
And Mitziusim atzmus.
And what's the metzius? Yeah.
What is Mitziusim atzmus?
Right, that's why I said...
So what's the point? My question is, you mentioned, my question is, if this is in a contradictory term, and it does not allow you to really fully absorb it, what's the point of putting it in those terms?
Right, and we said, what's Metzius doing there? And you said it's to allow the human seichel to relate to some extent.
Please understand it. You will inevitably understand it from a worldly perspective. The purpose of this is actually, like I mentioned, you mentioned yours, the word hine. It is to relate and to touch upon your own intelligence beyond your conscious intelligence. It is in fact to show that the human being, because the human being is really a godly creation, and in fact he has a perspective that is beyond the worldly perspective. And therefore the term Mitziusim atzmus does find its place in his intelligence. Not because he can define it, it's beyond definition, but he can relate to it. Because he knows that Mitzius is a real thing, is a, so to speak, a self-justifying presence. This is the point. And what is the point of that? Ultimately, what is the point of that? The point of that is to give us a clear sense that we are actually existing in a reality that is beyond our defining elements. And what's the point of that? The point of that is that this allows us to dedicate our life, dedicate our service at a level that is beyond our understanding. This is called Mesiras Nefesh. Nefesh, what nefesh means want. Mesiras Nefesh, giving up one's own perception, one's own will, to be what you define me as being, not what I define myself. This means Mesiras Nefesh. And these, so to speak, self-contradictory definitions open up our insight so that we could see beyond what we think we see, what we think our limit is. Because in fact, our neshama sees way beyond what our eyes see. And the whole purpose of this is that we should open up and bring into our conscience our neshama view rather than our eye physical view. And we start saying such things as Mitziusim atzmus. The only way to relate to it is by saying Mitziusim atzmus. This is why I stopped on the word Mitzius. The Atzmusa Yizborech. Atzmusa Yizborech. Yizborech, may he be blessed. In other words, it's a praise word. Praise word fits into davening. In learning, where does the praise word come in? Learning, you have a concrete definition. What does Yizborech come in? And the explanation is, you cannot begin to even think about it to be a part of your realm. Yeah, it's another existence within the realm of my existence. You immediately have to say, Yizborech, this is beyond my existence, beyond my definition. And if I mention it, I have to stand up in awe for mentioning it. It's a different kind of presence. This is why every time you say Atzmusa Yisborich, this is what allows me to mention Atzmus, because I'm going to say a praise word. Otherwise, to look at it from my perspective, that I know what Atzmus is, this is profaning the word Atzmus. So, if you are going to, in order to excuse me, demonstrate that when you say Atzmus, you mean you know what you're talking about, you immediately say Yisborich. It's not a concept that I can contain in my mind. I say it with trepidations. I say it with awe. And I'm allowed, take the liberty to say it, because I want to say a word of praise. Otherwise, where do I come to mention it? Ve'atzmusa Yisborich, she'metzius me'atzmusoi, whose metzius is me'atzmusa, which means it is completely outside the realm of our worldly perception. Hare, what then would be, from in our terms, what would allow the description of that? He does not have a beginning, because Mitzvah Me'atzmusah. So there is no beginning. Mitzvah Me'atzmusah is beyond the beginning. And Mele, so if Ein L'Tchilo, and this is, so to speak, a logical imperative, that if Ein L'Tchilo Mele, automatically it follows that Ein L'Tichlo. Doesn't have a Tichlo means an end or a purpose. There is no trigger, there's no aim for it coming into being. If it doesn't have a beginning, so how can it be a name for what it's coming to being? It doesn't come into being. What is it for? Ein L'Tichlo.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Um,
I want to conclude this sentence. This is why we say that the more appropriate, closer, or more correctly from our limited perspective, is to refer to him as Ein L'Tchilo rather than Ein L'Tichlo, Ein L'Seif. Ein L'Tchilo. Yes, Absham.
Correctly said, the course that is Ein L'Tchilo.
Can you make it more than?
If it would have a tchila, it means something is triggering it, so that causes it should have a tachlis. He must aim to what he's being caused.
I'm sorry, I don't hear. Ein L'Tchilo, it doesn't have a beginning.
Doesn't have a beginning. I'm trying to say, if it would have a beginning, meaning to say that something caused it.
That's right.
Something caused it, that would aim that he must accomplish what has
That's
caused
right,
it.
exactly right. So you said that the more correct way to refer to him is not Ein L'Seif, but Ein L'Tchilo. Because once Ein L'Tchilo, then automatically Ein L'Seif.